Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sharon Navas. I'm the co-founder of the Equity in Education Coalition. Thank you for coming on to our Zoom today around food security and being here to listen to Christina Wong from Northwest Harvest share her knowledge and information. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. If you see at the top of your Zoom screen that it says live on otter.ai live notes, that is our real-time transcription closed captioning if you need it. I will also put in the chat some of the link to the closed captioning. I am going to be muting everyone, so if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please put them in the chat box, and our associate Renika will be asking those questions as they come up. Otherwise, look forward to a great conversation around food security. Thank you.
Is that my cue to start?
No, not yet. We usually give it like 2 more minutes. We usually start at like 12:05-ish.
Thank you.
So just wanted to give you some time. Do you need to share screen?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
You want me to pull that up now then?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
I've got to stop doing that. I keep talking and then I'm on mute.
I have a host disabled sharing screen.
I just made you the co-host.
Okay. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
So I'll just wait a couple more minutes then. But in this time, I will also say, one, Sharon, I love your t-shirt. I'm a huge Schitt's Creek fan, and I'm anxiously awaiting the arrival of my You David face mask. And two, I'll just put everybody on notice. It's the last couple days of the official school year, and I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old at home with me who have been really, really acting up as they're waiting eagerly for the school year to end. So there might be some noise in the background.
For most of you that know me know that I have 2 dachshunds at home. But this week daycare for dogs opened up, so they are not going to be barking today, which is normally right around now is their howl time. This is when they start howling and letting everyone know that they have all kinds of feelings about stuff.
All right, well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to get started. So thank you so much for having me here today. This first slide is just my understanding of what people wanted to hear about, which is to learn a bit about Northwest Harvest itself. And then I'll talk about what's been happening in terms of numbers regarding food insecurity during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll then switch over to what Northwest Harvest's response has been to that food security crisis. And then I thought I should also spend some time going over what are some of the really key changes that have happened for public benefits like SNAP and summer meals that are in place from USDA during the pandemic in order to help get food to where people need it most. And then spend some time answering questions after that. So I hope that sounds like a good agenda, and please feel free to in the questions portion, if there's anything more that you want to know about that I missed, please feel free to ask me then. So to start off with a little bit about Northwest Harvest, we were established in 1967, so over 50 years ago. Essentially, and I see that Elise DeGoyer is on this presentation, and so she can add anything to my my story retelling about this in case I miss anything important. But Northwest Harvest was started by coming together of several churches that could see hunger and poverty literally in our streets and wanted to do something about it. And they figured that tackling food with the understanding that food is something tangible that we can help meet and would be easier to address than poverty itself. So, so right there, Northwest Harvest comes at it with an understanding that hunger is a symptom of poverty. It does not replace poverty. Poverty is at the root causes of hunger. But doing something about getting food into the hands of people in need was something very tangible that could be done in response to what people were seeing on the streets. So I can't think of a more clear example of community organizing than that work right there of pulling together different organizations and in order to secure food and distribute it to people in need. So over time, people have really known us. We've grown to be Washington's independent statewide food bank. And what I mean by that is that we are not part of the Feeding America network. There are two other food banks in our state, Food Lifeline and Second Harvest, who are both part of Feeding America, which is a national network of food banks. Northwest Harvest, we are homegrown here in Washington State. By food bank, I mean that we provide nutritious food to over 375 food pantries, meal programs, and high needs schools. Our focus has been on nutritious food staples like dried beans, rice, oats. 60% of what we give out is fresh or frozen produce. And then we also offer protein items like ground turkey. Sometimes we get salmon fillets and salmon patties from the state hatcheries to give out. We also try to, when we acquire chickens for people, we try to make sure that it's halal meats that we're distributing. The other key thing to know about Northwest Harvest is that we have not traditionally accepted government funding for our food distribution work, and that was intentional to set a low barrier service for programs. Basically, we didn't want to collect information on households asking for food because it's a core value of ours that food should be given freely to anyone in need, no questions asked. So often the way that our food works is that a local food pantry, so let's say like the Tukwila Food Bank, for instance, will receive food from us. They'll also receive food from the Feeding America affiliate, Food Lifeline. They'll also get food that they are purchasing with money that's donated to them and food products that they get in food drives. But the food that they get from Northwest Harvest, what we ask of our partners is that if someone were to come to their doors who wouldn't normally get service that day, for instance, if they don't live in the zip code that food bank serves, we ask that they don't walk away empty-handed. Our food goes collectively into the mix from all those different resources that's available for that food pantry to give to people who are coming to their doors. But if there was someone who were coming to their doors who wouldn't normally get service that day, we ask that that they don't walk away empty-handed and that the food from Northwest Harvest be given to them so that they may not get everything that's available at that food bank that day, but they should get a good variety of produce and protein items and those nutritious staples. In addition to getting a referral to what is the food pantry that serves their service area. We are not just a food bank, but we also operate our own frontline program, the SODO Community Market. This is, you'll see this at the bottom of the hill at 4th and Holgate in South Seattle. We're really excited about this, about the market. It just actually is approaching our first year anniversary that's been open. If you haven't visited the market before, it looks and feels just like a grocery store. When people can come on Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays when we're open, and they can come as often as they need to. The only information that we take is a name. It doesn't have to be their actual name, and what's the approximate breakdown of the age groups that live in their household. And then they get a basket and can take food, shop for food that we have available that day. When they check out, a volunteer will pack their bags, and no money is exchanged. So we really wanted to focus on that model to provide as much dignity as possible for that experience of asking for help with food. Other areas of our work is we have a hunger response network department, which does two main areas of work. One is to help support those partner food pantries and meal programs, addressing any questions or concerns about the food that Northwest Harvest gives them. Also providing information about best practices in food banking, food safety issues, also basic nonprofit support work. Then the other piece of that is actually developing food access programs. So that includes our 3 Squares backpack program, which at least DeGoria is very familiar with. That works with 49 schools throughout the state, providing backpacks of kid-friendly food that kids can take home and have something to eat over the weekend. Also supplementary snacks. We also have a Kid Summer Food Club program, which provides extra kid-friendly food to food pantries in areas that don't have a federally funded summer meal site for kids. And looking at a variety of new kinds of collaborations with the private sector, including working with healthcare in order to streamline referrals and screening about food insecurity and helping to connect people to public benefits as well as their local food pantry. Last but not least, we have our advocacy work, which is my contribution in Northwest Harvest. We work on state and federal issues. We focus, we have a 2-tiered agenda. Our focus is on protecting and strengthening nutrition assistance programs, things like SNAP or basic food, WIC, school meals. We also done a lot of work around supporting the SNAP incentive programs that are used at farmers markets and at grocery stores and are being prescribed by healthcare systems. That is helping people buy more fruits and vegetables with their basic food benefits. And then our 2nd-tier agenda, again, recognizing that hunger doesn't occur in a vacuum, that we know that people are consistently experiencing hunger because food is that flexible part of a budget. If you have a limited budget, people will, tend to skip meals in order to put that money towards those less flexible costs, like paying your rent, paying for your childcare, paying for car repairs. So we also will lend our voices to support issues in housing, in housing, access to affordable quality healthcare, and promoting economic stability. And that economic stability work has primarily been around TANF, as well as things like the Fair Chance Act or Ban the Box, things around creating more job opportunities for people. So that's Northwest Harvest as we normally operate outside of a pandemic. Some numbers, or food security by the numbers during COVID-19. And so you'll see I split this out as before the pandemic and during the pandemic. The numbers that I have during the pandemic, those are coming from a couple of resources. One is a rapid needs assessment that we did for the state at the beginning of the pandemic, where we were trying to quickly assess how many people in Washington state could be experiencing food insecurity as a direct result of the pandemic. The numbers that we used for that rapid needs assessment was census tract information, as well as information from Feeding America's Hunger in America study. So the four populations that we looked at to calculate that rapid needs assessment is how many people were experiencing food insecurity before the pandemic, how many kids are eligible for free or reduced price meals, how many seniors are living in poverty, and how many new applications for unemployment. The second resource that we're using for assessing what's been happening during the pandemic is a report that Northwest Harvest commissioned and was just released a couple of weeks ago that looks at what are the job categories that have been most applying for unemployment benefits, and then looking at enhanced unemployment benefits that have been provided by Congress. And that study, I've provided a link for where you can find that report at the end of my slideshow, but that study is helping us predict when Washington might see our peak food insecurity crisis and how many people might be impacted overall. So going back to the slide that you're seeing, before the pandemic, about 851,000 Washingtonians, or 1 in 10 households, struggled with food insecurity. And what I mean by food insecurity is that they don't have enough resources to consistently provide food for everyone in the household. It's based on a sliding scale of questions that's asked by USDA. So there's a difference between being food insecure and then what USDA calls very low food insecurity, or what we call hunger. And hunger is when that pattern of missing meals becomes more persistent. It happens more frequently. So before the pandemic, about 851,000 Washingtonians struggled with food insecurity. During the pandemic, our rapid needs assessment is estimating that between 1.6 to 2 million people could be struggling with food insecurity. Our food crisis in Washington State projection model thinks that when Washington actually will see our peak food insecurity crisis will happen later this year, between August to December. And during that time, 2.2 million Washingtonians, or roughly 1/4 of Washington's population, could be struggling with food insecurity. Before the pandemic, 4% of Washington's households struggled with hunger. So that persistent disruption in eating patterns and missing meals. Our report, our projection model, predicts that during that peak period of August to December, we could see as many as 13% of Washington households experiencing hunger. And then before the pandemic, according to WSDA, 1 in 6 Washingtonians relied on their local food bank. What we're hearing anecdotally from our statewide network of partners is that food bank lines currently are between 30% higher, or sometimes as much as 2 to 3 times higher what they normally see. And again, our projection model is saying that we haven't even seen that peak in food insecurity crisis yet. What our projection model is basing why we might see that peak in that August to December timeframe is based on 2 factors. One is a survey of different CEOs in the nation and in Washington State of major businesses actually predict that between the possibility of another of a second wave, we haven't even made it out of our first wave, but a second wave of infections, that peak unemployment can actually happen between August and December of this year. And add to it the enhanced unemployment benefits that was passed by Congress. Those expire at the end of July. So that combination of peak job loss and the loss of enhanced unemployment benefits would be occurring in that last quarter of the calendar year timeframe. And that's when we would really potentially see, I say that we're already in crisis, but we could see that crisis turn into a catastrophe. So Northwest Harvest's COVID-19 response. I've laid it out as these have been sort of our main strategies for responding to COVID-19. The first is starting in mid-March, we put into place the third-party logistics and added warehouse space that we needed in order to start producing shelf-stable emergency food boxes. The reason why we went with shelf-stable foods, turning away from the fresh and frozen products that we normally have available to distribute, and why we also pre-pack them in boxes is because of social distancing needs. Many of the frontline food pantries that receive our food, they were seeing massive declines in volunteer as well as staffing, especially because volunteers tend to be more from those high-risk populations of seniors and people with disabilities, or also people who have family members that they have to stay home and take care of. And without that volunteer labor force, in combination with the need to minimize in-person contact as much as possible, it was the fastest and most efficient thing for a food bank like Northwest Harvest and also the two Feeding America affiliates to pre-pack boxes of food that we then give to the food pantry partners, so that way they can either deliver them to people's homes or have walk-up or curbside pickup. The focus on shelf-stable foods is because, especially at that beginning part of the pandemic when people were having to shelter in place, we wanted to make sure that they had food that could last them for a while in case they couldn't get out to a grocery store if it wasn't safe for them to shop for food. So those emergency food boxes, we are actually working in partnership with the Washington State Department of Agriculture and then the two Feeding America affiliates, Second Harvest and Food Lifeline. Each of us have about a 13 county assignment. So Northwest Harvest, instead of serving the whole state, we are leading the efforts to produce these emergency food boxes and shipping what supplies we procure to food pantries and programs that are in our 13 county assignment. But I want to stress, again, it shows what the need is that even in that 13 county assignment, if you look at last year's numbers when Northwest Harvest was serving 375 programs statewide, there were roughly about 790,000 individuals or visits who accessed our statewide network of programs. During the pandemic, just within our 13 county assignment, 30% of this overall statewide need is projected to be in South King County, and another 31% of the total statewide need is projected to be in Pierce County. Both South King County and Pierce County are within our 13 county assignment. And the total number of people that it's projected that we will be serving is about 768,000 people. So nearly as many people just within our 13 county assignment as we served statewide last year. Those emergency food boxes, we, over time, as people have been able to move out of the home and get out more, we are also shifting away from an emphasis on shelf-stable items. We still are providing shelf-stable boxes so that way people can supplement with fresh products that they're buying from their grocery stores or farmers markets. We have a vegetarian box that can also be adapted for halal, for communities that need halal foods by adding halal meat products to the vegetarian boxes. We then have fresh boxes that we're now producing in partnership with Anaba Farms in Yakima, which is focusing on Washington-grown fruits and vegetables. And then we're trying to also find partnerships in Western Washington to expand that program. And then we have boxes that focus on meals ready to eat for unhoused people and households that have limited storage or cooking facilities or abilities. That's the emergency food boxes strategy. Then our other food distribution strategy has been working with non-traditional partners in a community response. And what I mean by that is organizations that previous to COVID-19 had not played any role in food distribution, but in the families and households that they work with, they've identified that they've identified large groups of people who aren't able to get to their local food bank or because of immigration status or concerns have been afraid to access public benefits that they might be eligible for. And so we are working with those organizations, providing them emergency food boxes that they are then giving to families that they serve at their homes. And so some examples of that include, we're working with World Relief, which is an immigrant and refugee, an asylum and refugee resettlement program in South King County in Seattle. We are providing emergency food boxes that are serving about 400 families a week through that program. We are also working with United Way of King County to provide boxes of food to people who are living in South King County public housing, public housing in order to help provide food there. We have also been part of the State Food Security Coordination Team. This is an effort to bring together the 4 different state agencies that administer a federal nutrition assistance program, as well as the 3 NGOs, Northwest Harvest, Food Lifeline, and Second Harvest, and then staff from the governor's budget offices, and our legislative partners. I saw that Representative Gregerson's on this call. She's part of the State Food Security Coordination Team as well. Our goal with the State Food Security Coordination Team is to be able to assess what the food insecurity needs are in our state, what are the resources that are available to meet those needs, and to try to advocate and put in place additional resources to mitigate food insecurity in our state as much as possible. One of the efforts that's coming out of that State Food Security Coordination Team, which I'm happy to answer more questions about, Representative Gregerson and I have been working on an effort, and Sharon recently joined our action team, so I'm really grateful to have Sharon's partnership in this as well. We are trying to, we developed a model team structure for the coordination of the response to community identified gaps in food distribution services. What I mean by that is, at the local level, we would really love to see the community organizations that are responding to hunger working in conjunction to make sure that people are who are eligible for public benefits are able to actually use those public benefits. And so that's a combination of helping people apply for the benefits that they're eligible to use, and then working together with the private sector and in coordination with the other resources, that if there's a logistical barrier to somebody using their public benefits, helping to break through those barriers. So for instance, somebody might be experiencing food insecurity because they live in senior housing and maybe they get SNAP, but they're unable to get to the grocery store. So one response might be that we try to get food bank emergency food boxes to that person. But another way that we can help them out is if we can figure out what are the logistical barriers to helping somebody use their SNAP benefits, like whether it's a driver or somebody who can help connect them with delivery of food that's purchased online. Things like, so that kind of public-private partnership. And then the other strategy that we've been working on is federal and administrative advocacy. Congress has been putting out one relief package after another, and so we are in close communication with our congressional delegation about what we're seeing and hearing on the ground, and giving ideas about how we can improve our response and the flexibility of nutrition assistance programs in order to help people have as many resources as they need to respond to food insecurity. We also have been working with state agencies on the implementation of those pieces of legislation that's passed. I'm going to turn my attention now quickly to just going over what are some of the key changes that happened to those nutrition assistance programs before I take questions. So I'm going to start with SNAP, or basic food. formerly called food stamps. As you know, SNAP is used to buy food from grocery stores, farmers markets, and other certified retailers. Some key changes that happened to SNAP is since March, every household that's on SNAP receives the maximum benefit for their household size. And those are called emergency SNAP allotments. And those will continue to be in place through July. And it's really helpful for helping households have additional money needed to buy more food at this time. One key thing to note about that is because the way that SNAP benefits are calculated for each household size is you deduct monthly expenses for utilities, childcare, certain medical expenses, and housing from your gross income. And depending on what your net income is for your household size, that determines what level of benefits you get. So that means that households that struggle the most with those monthly costs, they already get the maximum benefit for their household size. Even though it's really great that Congress has provided these maximum SNAP benefits from March and continuing indefinitely as long as states meet requirements that USDA has set up in order to keep providing these emergency SNAP allotments. Households that were already struggling enough before the pandemic began that they were already getting the maximum SNAP benefit, they have not seen any added relief. So I'm only mentioning this because one of the key priorities that we are asking people to advocate with Congress on is to increase those maximum benefits by 15% so that households that have been really struggling also have increased resources to help meet their food needs during this time. Another key change to SNAP has been there's a nationwide waiver of the time limit for SNAP benefits. You probably have heard of ABODs, or able-bodied adults without dependents. These are people between the ages of 18 to 49 who do not have children living with them and who otherwise don't have a condition that prevents them from working. They those individuals, unless those individuals in Washington State's primarily been in King County, where our unemployment rate has been low enough that that we've enforced the time limit for these individuals. If they're not working at least 20 hours per week, then they are limited to just 3 months of SNAP benefits before they're cut off for 3 years. So during the pandemic, Congress passed authority for USDA to issue a nationwide waiver of this time limit. So that's key to remember because there's a lot of people in King County who were kicked off of their SNAP benefits for not meeting that work requirement. During this time, they can reapply for SNAP and get food assistance during this time. The next one I wanted to talk about is the Women, Infant, and Children's Program, or WIC. This provides money for pregnant nursing moms, families with infants and children under the age of 5, with added benefits so that they can buy certain food products that are labeled WIC products, because the intention of WIC is to help really support specific developmental needs at each of these stages. And so it's really food that's prescribed, or food as medicine in this case. WIC has in place currently through the end of July waivers that allow for services that that people have to comply with in order to receive their WIC benefits. It allows them to do it remotely or not in person. And we've really seen that that's made a big difference in people actually utilizing WIC. For years, WIC participation has been on the decline. And during this time period, even though we have not yet seen new applicants for WIC. We've been seeing an increase in families that were on WIC but not using their benefits returning to WIC. And we think that the remote services that were put in place because of social distancing, that's really been helping. Makes sense, right? Like that it's one less hassle about going in for a clinic appointment, that you can do the consultation from your home in order to receive and use your WIC benefits. There's also been flexibility in what you can purchase, because recognizing that supply chain might mean that certain food items that your benefit allows you to buy might not be available. So there's been some flexibilities that have been put in place to help people actually utilize their benefits, that you don't have to forego buying that carton of orange juice because they don't have the specified size and kind of orange juice available in the store. And then one state legislative update on this is that thanks to work that we did in the legislative session last year, WIC also provides vouchers that families can use at their local farmers market. Traditionally, that benefit has been as low as $20 per person or a maximum of $40 per household for an entire market season. Starting this year, those benefits are now $28 per person or a maximum of $56 for the household to use during the entire farmers market season. So that's a great thing to promote to families, that especially during the summertime as the farmers markets are reopening, another great resource for fresh fruits and vegetables for those families. Summer meals for kids. This is what we normally see are free meal sites for kids under the age of 18 that are operated by school districts or by community-based organizations. You'll frequently see this at parks or community centers. During this summer, USDA just approved of a waiver that will allow federally reimbursed meal sites anywhere where there's need, because otherwise, normally those meal sites can only operate in places where 50% or more of the kids are eligible for free or reduced price meals. This is a waiver that has been used over the last few months in order for schools to operate meal sites, regardless of district. The other changes that you'll see, and this is continuing from what you're seeing from the school meal sites, is that families can pick up multiple meals and multiple days worth of meals at one time. Meals will still be delivered in a grab-and-go style instead of having kids eat meals on site. And meals can be picked up by the parent or guardian without the child present in order to protect for social distancing. And then I think this is the last one I'm going to talk about before switching over to questions. This is a new benefit that's coming to Washington State called Pandemic EBT, or PEBT for short. What this is it's for families with students that attend a school, a K-12 school that participates in the National School Lunch Program, and their child is eligible to receive free or reduced price meals, or their school provides free meals to all students through the community eligibility provision. What this benefit is it's added cash equivalent for every school breakfast and lunch that has been missed since schools closed because of COVID-19. So that way those families have added assistance to buy groceries to help replace those meals. And it's a really sizable benefit. It can be as much as $399 per eligible child that's living in your household. Unfortunately, this is a potential for a really great program, but there's so many nuances to the rollout about it that it can be confusing. And so having community-based organizations that are trusted messengers, being really clear to help families understand what this benefit is and how to access it, it's going to be really key, which is why I wanted to make sure I spend some time talking about it. to you all today. So how this will roll out is that for those households with an eligible, that are eligible for this benefit, that are already on SNAP, their benefits will be automatically added to their EBT card for the month of July. It's a one-time payment. And so you might hear from people asking, why did my benefits jump up so much this month? It's a one-time benefit. They use it just like they do with their SNAP benefits, and they have up to 1 year to use this benefit. So they don't have to spend it all at once. For those households that are eligible who are not on SNAP, they'll have to fill out an online application, and that online application will be available at Washington Connection, which is the benefits portal for the state. They could also complete an application by calling DSHS's Benefit Center, and that's the recommendation for families that might need help with language translations as well. The other thing that we really want to, let me take a step back. Then there are families that might be newly eligible because of changes to their jobs that happened for COVID-19. And what I mean by this is families who, because of change of circumstances, maybe when schools were open, they were not enrolled or eligible for free or reduced price meals, but because of job loss due to COVID-19, since schools have closed, they might now be eligible, might meet the income guidelines for that. So for those families, they have to establish their income eligibility either by applying for SNAP or by applying for school meals. And SNAP can be done, again, online through Washington Connection, but applying for school meals means you have to contact your local school district. And if a family is applying, like wanting to show their eligibility for PEBT by applying for school meals, they have to do that before June 30th. So we're coming up on the deadline for that. They have to establish eligibility for SNAP or school meals before they can fill out the pandemic EBT application. And the pandemic EBT application, though, they have until August 31st or the beginning of the school year to fill out. So I know there's a lot of, this is what I mean by there's a lot of confusing dates, but I have at the end of the slideshow on my resources page, the FAQ for pandemic EBT, so you can see, have all those questions answered. The other thing I wanted to point out about pandemic EBT is that immigrants are eligible for this benefit regardless of their status. For undocumented immigrants, applying for school meals for their children who are eligible for school meals, they can then also fill out a PEBT application and receive benefits, or receive this benefit. For families that might be concerned about public charge, PEBT will not be taken into consideration when you're applying for a green card. It does not count towards public charge. And so we really want immigrant families to understand that, that this is a benefit that they can access regardless of their status. Okay, so that's all that's all that I have. I know I just threw a lot of information at you, but let's take some questions.
All right, so we do have a question from Velma Valoria. Do you partner with the public school system to provide food for low-income families?
Yes, so we partner with schools through our 3 Squares backpack program. So there's 49 schools throughout the state who will receive backpacks of kid-friendly, shelf-stable foods that's meant to provide meals during weekends and supplemental snacks. And that usually that operates during the school year. We also are collaborating with public schools. Well, in our advocacy work, we we've been working on a number of issues to try to bring down that cost barrier for kids to be able to access school lunch and school breakfast. So we were part of the coalition effort that passed Breakfast After the Bell. And then this past year, we just passed legislation regarding community eligibility. Community eligibility, the short version of it is it allows high poverty, high need schools to provide free meals to all students. And so we were part of the effort that is helping more eligible schools use that provision in order to provide universal free meals to their kids. And then the other piece that we've been working on that Representative Gregerson is very familiar with is in trying to eliminate the school lunch copay for families that are in that reduced price meal category. They still have to pay a copay of 40 cents per meal, which really adds up over time, and especially multiple kids that you have in the household.
Thank you. So another question that we have from Sumet Mel is, what partners in the pandemic EBT program what partners is the pandemic EBT program partnering with to make sure that folks are signing up if they don't have that automatically included in an EBT card?
That's a really good question. So PEBT, or Pandemic EBT, is a program that is being offered by OSPI and DSHS. Primarily through the Anti-Hunger Nutrition Coalition, we've been working with OSPI to make outreach materials as clear as possible, and trying to promote the program to families. So they are, I guess what I would say around that is there's not a formal partnership on this, but we, in order to get clear information about, available from OSPI, we worked with Columbia Legal Services, Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, and Building Changes. So trying to get different eyes on the material to one, make the language plain language for easy readability. Two, making sure that we have the language around public charge and immigrants without status applying for it, making sure that that language was clear and accurate. And then three, what information would unhoused families need in order to help access the program. And then in our administrative advocacy on it, we've been trying to working with OSPI in communicating about this program to the McKinney-Vento liaisons, the migrant family liaisons, and foster care as well. But really, the resources, and I have the link on the resources slide that maybe I'll just put that up on the screen now for people to see. So this pandemic EBT FAQ, you can find like a flow chart that you can share, and questions about it. But we're really trying to encourage community-based organizations to promote this as much as possible with families. So in our coalition work around promoting pandemic EBT, we've been working. We did a presentation for the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance's weekly call. I think that was like 2 weeks ago now. On Thursday, the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness will also have a presentation about it. And then we've been working to get information out through food bank networks. Northwest Harvest, we're putting flyers about pandemic EBT in our emergency food boxes that are going out to organizations. But we really strongly want to encourage people to talk about, or to learn more about this program through and sharing information out with others. And I didn't include it on here, but I can forward a link to Sharon for the a webinar that OSPI did on Monday with Claire Lane from the Anti-Hunger Nutrition Coalition that's geared for community-based organizations to walk through the program and how to do outreach on it.
Thank you so much for that. A question that we have from Aviva is, what are families finding to be the biggest barriers to getting food / applying for benefits?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. So I think when it comes to getting food, the biggest barriers have been particularly for families that are immunosuppressed or have members that are in a high-risk population. Then there's also, I think, for households that are reliant on public transportation, the decreased ridership and other limitations on that service because of social distancing has also been a barrier. And really, unless a program is able to offer home delivery, there's been even a barrier of the gas costs to drive up with your car to pick up food. As far as accessing public benefits, we hear anecdotally that public charge has been a big chilling effect on households applying, even for extended benefits. We are, that we also have seen that showing up in numbers for specific benefit programs, like the Disaster Cash Assistance Program that Washington State has been offering since late April. That is a one-time cash assistance program that undocumented immigrants can access, but the application numbers for that have been really low. And I understand that they only just started going up in the last couple of weeks as more direct outreach communications have been put in place. But from the different community-based organizations that we have been working with who serve immigrant and refugee populations, public charge has been frequently cited as a concern to applying for benefits, as well as even going to their local food bank.
Thank you. So from Bunte, is there a one-stop place to access info on all resources you presented in addition to how to apply for them?
Sure. So I put up at the top of this resources page, our Northwest Harvest's COVID-19 resources page. So that will give you the information about where, what our 13 counties are that we are responsible for providing food boxes. You can also, I think we have a link from the COVID-19, from that page. If not, on our website itself, if you click on the link for need food, then that will take you to a map of what are what are the food banks that Northwest Harvest normally serves statewide, and you'll see at the top of the page a link for a map that that has all the food banks and meal programs statewide, and it's color coded by whether it's Northwest Harvest or Food Lifeline or Second Harvest that provides the boxes to you. That you can also look for things like how whether people have the ability to pick up prepared boxes or can select their own items at that program, whether they provide hot meals, all these different ways that you can filter your search for what kind of service you're looking for. You can find that through our website as well. Hopefully this can serve as a one-stop shop. The other place you can look is on the state of Washington's COVID-19 resources page. They also will have a list of all the different public benefits and other resources that are available to respond during COVID-19.
Awesome. Thank you. Question from Ellis. How can we best get the word out about the pandemic EBT, especially to undocumented people who haven't been included in any relief packages so far?
Yeah, thank you for that. So OSPI, they have, I'll follow up with this resources page too, because I'm not sure if it's linked from, so the pandemic EBT FAQ that I posted, actually I wonder if I click on it, I can show it to you. So can everybody see this still? So it has this great flow chart to help people understand that process that I was describing about whether or not, like, if you receive basic food benefits, when you could expect to see the money added to your card, for households that aren't on SNAP, how you apply. I want to say that, so I think this flow chart is a great picture way of describing it. I unfortunately don't think that they might actually be planning on translating this itself. So OSPI has a separate website with outreach materials and social media posts. Let me see. I think if you just Google.
I pasted the link in the chat if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Here, you can see how often I've been searching to find it, but it's this K-12 page here, and we can put it in the chat. But this K-12 page, you'll see they have a communication toolkit, including, and these are resources that were specifically geared for schools, but I think community-based organizations, you can adapt it for your audience needs. There's also social media graphics. And these materials are going to be translated soon into these languages. So, so here, I'll put this in the chat function for now. But hopefully you can find resources off of that. Again, it was originally written for schools, but hopefully you can adapt and use resources from that to do outreach, and that it would be translated in some key languages.
Thank you so much for that. So we have another question from Samet. Does Northwest Harvest have a youth advisory group to provide support and input around how to reach out to young folks around food access?
I really like that. Elise is going to laugh at me because she'll remember from her time at Northwest Harvest that we had an Emerson Hunger Fellow who had developed a plan and program for a youth advisory board. I think we've intermittently had one that was in operation in Spokane, but I don't think we've had one in operation now. So, so I really like that idea, and we should talk about how can we, reignite that idea for the organization as a whole.
Samet said yes, thank you. So from Velma Valoria, we have, who are you partnering with to educate people around the current public charge?
So we are part of the Protecting Immigrant Families Washington Coalition, as well as the national campaign. And so that is a partnership with Children's Alliance, Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, Health Law Advocates, One America, and others. So, and specifically when it comes to public charge and food issues, if you go to Northwest Harvest's website and click on Take Action, you'll see a drop-down menu for toolkits. And if you click on the link for immigration toolkits, this is something that we developed to support food banks in helping to fight the fear about public charge. So you'll find in that posters that were translated into the most needed languages that let people know that you are welcome here, that we don't collect personal information. You'll find the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project advisory for nonprofits that helps explain the difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant. You'll find an editable postcard that reminds people that food banks are not included as part of a public charge, and can let people know what services they might have available for home delivery or mobile food pantries in case people are concerned about going into their local food bank. All this is stuff that could be adapted for your needs, but it's written specifically around food access. And actually, we should update those with some of these new programs that have been created for COVID-19. Hopefully, that's another resource for you.
In your research, do you have areas pinpointed where food insecurity exists?
In Washington State, like specific locations, or?
Yeah, I would.
Mm-hmm. So overall, in general, we know that food insecurity and hunger persist at disproportionately higher rates for particularly Black and Latinx communities, and also in rural settings compared to urban settings. During COVID-19, our rapid needs assessment has pinpointed most of the need would be, most of the food insecurity need would be happening in South King County and Pierce County. And then also Yakima is a high need area. 60% of residents in Yakima County work an essential needs job, so which tends to usually in farm working and food processing, which tends to be lower wages and poor conditions. So so those are sort of the key areas. If you're what has also, we have we're still finalizing it, but part of that that food security crisis in Washington report, the consulting company that helped develop our projection model, they've also developed a mapping tool where you can hone in at the city level, county level, or cluster together several cities to see what the projected need will be there. And when that's done, we'll make that publicly available for people.
And does Northwest Harvest know the food supply chain for the foods that are offered to the community? And is that like public access, like accessible information? And as an example, we've learned a few years ago that some of the food supplies for seniors were made through like prison labor.
So I guess in terms of the food, I mean, not in general, but the food that we are procuring to give to people, we try to, we are primarily, I mean that we hope are know what the conditions are for that. Like the reason why I'm sounding hesitant around this is because we know this during normal operations. During COVID-19, where there's been such high competition for buying particularly dry and shelf-stable foods with other states and with other hunger relief organizations. I can't say for sure if how closely it's being tracked because of the shortages in the food supply chain for those food items. I will say though that our procurement team primarily works with vendors that they have long established relationships with. So, so they, yeah, so I think, you know, and that we try to sort, you know, ethically sourcing our food is a priority for our organization. So, so yeah, but I'll try to find out more information to see, you know, we have an equity filter that we apply to our decision making, part of which is to, you know, it's established to help make sure that we're not doing any more harm or perpetuating harmful practices. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christina. I believe that is all of our questions. I will give it one more moment. If anyone has any last minute questions, we might be able to end a little bit earlier here today. Let's check the chat to see. Perfect. So yeah, so thank you so much for bringing.
Nika, I'm sorry. Is it okay
yeah.
for me to ask my question vocally? My apologies.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much. I wanted to follow up on the prison labor food because I know that with Meals on Wheels program was one of the reasons why when I was at a previous space was very hesitant on kind of like using that particular program is because we've heard that it was made through prison labor. So I wanted to know from you, like, how can we partner with Northwest Harvest and other food procurement specialists and entities to kind of like not stop this food emergency feeding program, but how do we like delve into conversations of dismantling this harmful practice of using oppressed groups of folks to actually provide food for oppressed groups of folks? Thank you.
No, totally. I agree with that. And you know, what I was trying to get at is that our organization has, you know, we put in place a nutrition policy a couple years ago, which is guiding what kinds of food products we are refusing to accept donations of, and what, and that's from a nutrition standpoint. Ethically sourcing our food has been one that we are further working towards, and I can only speak from what, you know, I know about our the vendors that we purchase from, but you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't have a direct answer right now, but it is an issue that we are working on and prioritizing. So would love to continue in conversation. Oh, and the other thing I can quickly say that's maybe a more direct answer is that you could also look for resources from Closing the Hunger Gap, which is a nationwide movement that we are a part of that is really trying to move food banking from a charity model to a social justice model. And ethically sourcing food is a conversation line in that as well.
Will your PowerPoint be available after this presentation?
Yes, I can forward that to Sharon to send that to people.
Perfect. And then question from James Nguyen is wondering if you could speak more on the Northwest Harvest sustainable and circular food processes, separate but not part from the equity and social justice lens. Apologies if this was already detailed before. James,
can you maybe unmute and clarify a little bit more about what you mean by sustainable and circular?
Just thinking about vertical farming and how you sort of like taking those processes in.
So we primarily source food from Washington growers, and we've been having more and more of an emphasis on on working with POC-owned growers. So those fresh boxes that I was mentioning before that are part of our box distribution network, we are working with Inaba Farms to produce those, and then we were looking on the western side to try to pull together a hub of sorts, again with a focus and emphasis on POC owned farms that kind of got blown off of the radar for the moment because of those USDA CFAP or Coronavirus Farm Assistance Program produce boxes that have been flooding the market for now. So, but we have an agriculture agriculture specialist who is based out of our Yakima warehouse, who is developing our grower relationships that we buy from. We try not to just get donated food, but to actually compensate growers for the food that they are giving to us. And our ag relations specialist, she actually comes from farm labor family and has deep ties and connections to more, to try to working with growers with known ethical treatment of their laborers. So
I see more clearly now. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Renika, for allowing me to ask one more question. Sorry, Christina, just one more question. I just wanted to share this experience. A couple of years ago, I went to purchase food at grocery outlet and I purchased some apples. Don't ask me why, but I had those apples in my fridge for a couple of months and they look as fresh as I bought them from the first day. So I assume there was some type of genetic manipulation material in those foods. And so I just wanted to make sure, or probably get some clarification on the types of, not only if it's ethically sourced, which you brought up around the guidelines, but wanted to ask around the particular types of foods. Are they genetically modified? And because it was pretty scary for me to see the apple the same way it was the first day I bought them.
Sure, I hear that. Well, I don't think we have it in our nutrition policy about specifically seeking out non-GMO foods, but a large part of that issue is also around labeling of products. Yeah, we don't have it in our nutrition guidelines, and the only reason why we don't have it in our nutrition guidelines is because getting deeper into the weeds of food policy, that's beyond my expertise. There's a lot that the problem with labeling is that there's just so much spreading of seeds and germination that it's hard to guarantee that things are completely not genetically modified. What I can say is, sorry. So I don't actually have a good answer for your question. Yeah, that it's a problem with labeling and what's available, but and what we are trying to source though.
Yeah, totally. And sorry, I just really kind of wanted to go through how you were connecting it with social justice. And I think that, even if we are receiving food from the state for our families, I think it should be 100% high quality, right? You don't have to have all that money to go shop at Whole Foods and feed that system and then receive all this good nutritious food. The state should also be responsible to make sure that they partner with Northwest Harvest to provide very high quality food and not just food that they say they are easily accessible because of the, if it's coming from some type of other sources, or if it's because it's genetically modified. I basically just don't feed our communities crap, right? Even though it looks so good.
And that is a commitment of ours. We don't want food going to people unless we would eat it ourselves. So yeah, and we actually during because things are so fast and moving and you're in crisis mode during COVID-19, we set in place 5 quality assurance metrics, which include, do people know how to get, were the communications clear about how people access our food? Are people, was it a dignified experience for receiving the food? What's the quality of food that people are receiving? So we, I'll say that's been a driving factor for the product that we're putting in the boxes that we're distributing out. That was a driving motive for starting up the Fresh Boxes program with the Napa Farms to make sure that it's high quality, locally grown produce, that we know where the food's coming from, that we're putting out.
Thank you so much, Christina.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let me check to see. All right. So yeah, thank you, Sue. Like, you were really able to answer a lot of our questions. We greatly appreciate you being able to join us today. And you said that the PowerPoint would be available or you'll send it to Sharon and then we can send that out to folks. Perfect. Well, yeah, if there's no more questions, then I think that we'll respect everyone's time and end here a few minutes early. Again, thank you so much to you, Christina, for coming on and being able to share all this great information with us. And then thank you again to everybody for joining us again for another great Lunch and Learn and asking some really thought-provoking questions. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.